Welcome back to Wooded Lake Adventures. Today we're in the wood shop again, and we're going to continue working on the campsite signs we had made for our different tent sites. We're going to do some sanding of them, get them nice and smooth, hopefully route a profile around the edge. And once that's done, hopefully we'll do the chemical burning for the logos. So stay tuned and we'll see what's going on. Okay, you can see here on the bench I've got a couple of our signs. I've also got the palm sander here. I'm going to put a new sheet of fine 220 grit sandpaper on it. Give these a light sanding, and then once they're all sanded, we'll go ahead and get a router bit picked out, put an edge profile on. My guess is probably some form of slight round over or something like that. Just to dress it up a little bit, trim to final size, and we'll measure the size the logo is going to be on the sign. The logo is going to be over here. We'll measure the size that is versus the amount we have left here next to the words tent and site, and trim off some excess over on the edge here, and then we'll get the profile routed and we'll be good to go. So let's get started. Okay, so we've got all of the signs sanded. I'm going to go ahead and pick out a router bit and get the router set up, and we'll pick up from there. Okay, I've got tent site C here. I'm not sure why I'm using C, but either way. Once I laid out where the Wooded Lake logo will be, this is the vinyl print that I'm going to put on as the stencil, and then I'll put the chemical burning area in here so I can burn that on. It looked like I could trim basically where this mark is here, about 3 inches off the end of the board. So I'm going to trim to this one at that little pencil mark, make sure the size looks good, and then I'll trim all the rest to match that so that we're all the same size. Okay, we've got all of our signs trimmed to the same length now, which gives us a nice spacing with our Wooded Lake logo next to it when we do the wood burning, or the chemical burning on the wood. So I guess it is wood burning. What we're going to do, I've got the router set up here with a slightly rounding edge. It's actually going to take out a slight groove here, which should give us a nice profile. So I'm going to get the table set up for the router, and we'll start passing all our boards through it. Okay, I just removed the work surface I normally have on this table. Reveals basically an identical work surface below that. However, the lower one has a little slot routed in it where my router fits. I can see what's going on with the table here. All right, and then the router plate drops in there nicely. It's catching on something now. Oh my God. Here we go. Some stuff underneath here. There, that's better. All right, so the router drops right in there. And we're good to go. We'll get the dust collector set up. Hopefully it can clean up some of our dust. There's a little less in the air blowing around for us. Perfect. Like that angle. Something like that. Alright, so that should give a nice overhead view. Not loving the way the hose is hooked up here. That's a little better. I'm still figuring out the microphones and the little quirks with using them, so once again have a chunk of video with no audio. After all of the edges of the signboards had the profile routed on them, we now need to give them a quick sanding. After sanding, we'll ensure everything fits nicely with the vinyl logo stencil we cut on our Cricut machine, and begin the process of getting the stencil prepped and mounted to the signboard. The hardest part, or really just the most annoying part of working with the vinyl, is weeding it to remove all the excess parts we don't want. A little pick tool helps, but it's still a slow, tedious process. I found, after all the excess material has been removed and the stencil is ready to be transferred from the backing paper it comes on to the workpiece, it's best to use painter's tape that is not too sticky, which is why I'm rubbing it on my shirt to just get some dust or lint on the tape and reduce the stickiness. Once the stencil is lined up and in place, pressing and rubbing it down gets it to stick to the work surface. Then the tape can just be peeled off. Since you don't want the tape to be too sticky, it can be reused a few times. Once the stencil is placed in the correct spot, I put some extra painter's tape around it, just to give us a little more buffer space when we add the chemical mixture to ensure that we're not getting that on parts of the wood we don't want to be burned. Because anywhere that mixture is, when we use the heat gun, it will actually activate that mixture and burn the wood. So we want to make sure we're only putting it where we want the logo to show up and not running off the sides of the stencil too far. Okay, so we've got all of our tent signs where we finished up all of the stencils. I've got some extra tape on some just to give me a little extra space around the outsides of the stencils. So those are ready to go. I've got my chemical solution mixed up for the wood burning. That is basically a quarter cup of warm water, an eighth of a teaspoon of ammonium chloride here. Get a better look at that. So the ammonium chloride, there's an eighth of a teaspoon of that in our quarter cup of warm water, and then we use this Thicket product. We put two small scoops. There's a scooper in the bottle here, and I put two of the small scoops in there. Basically, we're just going to take a foam brush and dip it in there, paint over the stencil so everything's coated on the bare wood. And then I'm going to take my heat gun and activate the chemical by spraying it, or by hitting it with the heat gun, just to warm it up. So what we're going to do, take that outside, probably do it in the garage or on the driveway with the door open in the garage, or right out on the driveway itself, just to keep any fumes down. Put all that on, paint it on there with the brush, let it dry a smidge, hit it with the heat gun, and hopefully it burns all that in nicely. So here goes. After the chemical mixture has been painted on the sign, covering all the areas we want to burn, we need to wait for it to dry. Once it's all dried, we can remove the tape and the vinyl stencil. Then we use the heat gun to activate the chemicals and burn the wood and look at our logo as it appears. With the logos now all burned into the signs, I think we're going to cut the video off here. In the last video for this project, we'll water seal the signs, paint the letters with some black paint to make them pop more, and get the signs mounted in place on some bamboo poles I have. As always, thanks for watching. Please give our video a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to our channel so you know when we post a new video, and leave us a comment. Thank you.